Omar, how are you?
Hey, doing good.
Uzi, how are you?
Doing well, excited to be back.
Good. I am too. We have a lot to cover today. Lots of news. I pinned at the top our two sponsors. Appreciate when people support our sponsors. The link are at the top of your screens. Omar, there's big drama going on right now on the Xverse. I'm getting tagged left and right on things about Hardware 3. Your favorite topic.
Yeah.
Man, I really want to start with something positive, but this is kind of crazy. I wish maybe they can come up here. Let me see if I can bring them in here. Anyway. Did you see that video? I made our one-on-one interview public this morning, and it is breaking some records. Thank you very much, Omar. I pinned it at the top.
Great.
Yeah, people seem to like our conversation. And yeah,
it was an interesting one.
Yeah, what was your favorite part?
I just think talking about the long-term future, like you said, normally we're talking about short-term stuff day to day here, but we really are just living in this incredible time of transformation. And I don't think people really appreciate that much. The world of just a few years in the future is going to look very different than the world of today.
If you want to dig into that topic more, the link is at the top of our screens. It is now available for everybody on YouTube. About Tesla, how are you?
Pretty good. How are you?
I'm good. What's the latest with FSD?
Well, we're still at pretty much at the same level as we were before. There was a small wave yesterday going to some cars, but it's still only hardware 4, no Cybertruck. And it looks like pretty much all customers who are subscribing to FSD or have it purchased on hardware 4 have received that latest update by now. So we're gonna say for sure because we don't know what percentage on Tesla 5 have subscribed, but it looks like majority. And I had a quick poll last week to see if that confirms my assumption, and looks like most people who are eligible have received it. So unfortunately, only a small percentage are eligible at this point. So we'll see what happens next week.
Okay. When do you think Hardware 3 cars are going to get FSD? It is a hotly followed topic. A lot of people are impatiently waiting.
Well, I mean, since the expectation was that it would be initial expectation, or at least what Elon was saying was that it would be released by early this month, and it just didn't happen, obviously. But I guess they're working hard on making this happen. So we don't know what the problem is. Is it just something that they were hoping would be achieved, but they're now having problems with that? Or maybe it's just some minor things that require, further validation and testing, and they will release it soon. So we can only guess. My hope is that it will be released pretty soon. As I said before, I'm hoping this month. So if not, then early next month. But I might be wrong. We don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody's just freaking out for no reason. They are going to run the model at full size on hardware 3. We have seen cars testing it. ADAS drivers have sent me pictures and videos of it running on hardware 3. It runs on hardware 3. everyone freaking out. Oh my God, it didn't ship on time. He said 10 days. It's been 12 days or whatever. I think it's been 17 days or something. This is a guy who said in 2016, you're going to be able to smart summon across the country in 2 years. You're shocked that it didn't show up in 10 days? I would be shocked if it showed up on time. When has anything ever showed up on time? So the fact that it's not on time isn't evidence that, it's obsolete or something. They're going to continue updating hardware 3 for many more years. If for some reason they can't, then an upgrade will be offered. So no need to worry. I get that it's frustrating. If I had a hardware 3 car and I couldn't afford to upgrade, I would be frustrated too. I would be complaining. I would be saying this sucks. But in the grand scheme of things, being forced to run 12.3 for, even 3-4 more weeks is first world problems. Okay. So everybody's going to get the update. It's going to be way better. Hands free is going to be amazing. And the Tesla team's working hard on it.
About Tesla?
I posted the graph some time ago that about 80% of the cars out there have hardware 3. So it's really very important for Tesla to support hardware 3 because that's the big majority of the cars at this point. Whether it's just for FSD or for Robotaxi, for both scenarios, it is really important to support
Wait,
hardware 3.
so let's talk about that for a second, because a lot of people are thinking that Tesla and Elon promised that hardware 3, like we literally promised, that hardware 3 cars would be robotaxiable. Is that the case, Omar? And if they can't do it, is there a legal liability to Tesla?
I mean, I don't think he promised that. You can read what it says on the website. There's a lot of fine print. So it says your car will be able to do this and that. Then at the bottom it says this is, dependent on being millions of miles and receiving regulatory approval. So they didn't really promise anything, but I mean, customers just want the FSD updates, right? I don't think it's unreasonable. If you bought FSD, right, you paid thousands of dollars for FSD, you want the latest update. And they're going to get the latest update, but it just needs to be tested and validated and made sure that it's safe and can run on hardware 3 before it goes out. So this kind of testing and validation often takes longer than we want. But I think that people are a little more worried because they're thinking, okay, if it takes this long to get it running on hardware 3, then is hardware 3 going to be this far behind every update? And I don't think that's actually the case. Because what they said is we've made the model 5 times larger. It has a 5 times larger parameter count. In order to make it inference with sufficient latency on hardware 3, we need to make some performance improvements to the inference engine. So there's a fixed time cost to allowing hardware 3 to have these inference engine improvements that it can run this larger model. And, hardware 4 can run a model, they said, that's up to 8 times larger than this by its parameter count. So this is a model that's sized to run on hardware 3. But some improvements are needed to the inference engine, to the code around the model that allows it to run fast enough. But once these improvements to the inference engine are made, any successive updates to the model that aren't larger, that still have the 5 times higher parameter count, but are further fine tunes of the model or even a new model trained that fits within the same resource profile, they should be able to launch it at the exact same time as hardware 4. And hardware 4 is still running in hardware 3 emulation mode. So they haven't even started training these dedicated hardware 4 models yet. So I think when you kind of understand a little bit of what they're doing technically, you realize that it's not really as bad as some people, imagine that, oh, okay, from now on, every hardware 3 update is going to be super delayed. I expect that hardware 3 and hardware 4 updates will continue to launch at the same time after this.
We have a reply to the space. Bull 2035 says, hardware 3 is dragging Tesla down focus on hardware 4 and higher. Hardware 3 is a great level 2 and could be a geofenced level 4. Omar, and then about Tesla, do you guys think trying to update hardware 3, trying to get FSD fit into hardware 3 is holding down FSD progress?
No, I think that in order to run a global robotaxi service, you need to support multiple hardware versions. So in order to be giving, let's say, 1 billion rides a year, you think everyone's going to be running the same chip? No, you're not going to be running the same chip. You're going to have maybe even 10 generations of chips that are in the fleet at the same time. So what they're learning to do now is practice for running a global robotaxi fleet. And this is just the reality of it. You can't have just the latest chip. You need to support the old chips. If we don't take care of our customers with hardware 3, then we lose most of the revenue generation potential of FSD, right? We lose the majority of it. So we're going to make a lot more money if we support them both. It's not that hard to do. If you add up the cost of upgrading everyone's car compared to the cost of making FSD continue to work on hardware 3, it's a no-brainer. Continue to support the old hardware. And, even cars that were bought with MCU1 are still getting FSD updates. So I think people are really underestimating their commitment to backwards compatibility. Just because it doesn't ship within, 14 days, you think they're never going to do it? They're going to do it, but these things take time to validate.
About Tesla, what do you
I agree. I think it's really important for Tesla to have hardware 3 supported, and just it may be a little bit more difficult than just switching to hardware 4 to 5, but they cannot abandon this. Just think of it from this point of view. When Tesla rolls out the Robotaxi, and I don't think they will roll it out with just the new cars that they're developing. I think they want to roll it out with existing cars. And what is the current fleet that Tesla owns? Not the customer cars, but Tesla owns. The Tesla owns the fleet of trade-in cars, which are predominantly or almost exclusively hardware 3. The reason why Tesla wasn't allowing to buy out after the lease is because they wanted to keep it for their own robotaxi fleet, right? And that fleet will not be usable if they don't support hardware 3. So it's essential, it's really important, critical for Tesla to have it supported, at least initially, for the initial rollout. Eventually, majority of the cars will be hardware 4 or hardware 5, and hardware 3 will be a smaller and smaller fraction of the fleet. So by then, that will be a different question. At some point they will drop support for hardware 3, of course, but they will. But initially, that's not an option. That's not something they would want to do. Does it delay the implementation? Yes, of course, but that's a necessity. I don't see the way around it, at least for now.
I mean, the FSD is still progressing. They've been releasing the software for the cars where they can. Let's do some simple math here. How many hardware 3 cars are there in the world? How many cars were produced between 2019 and 2023? It's probably, let's say a couple million cars. It's probably even more than that. Now, how much would it?
80% of the fleet.
Well, 80% of the Tesla 5 fleet. We'd have to do the actual math on production to figure out what percentage it is. But if you just look at let's call it 2 million cars, it's probably even more than that. And let's say the upgrade cost is $5,000 per car in terms of service center time, installs, new computers you'd have to produce, et cetera, et cetera. That's $10 billion. So what costs more? Hiring one guy for, let's even say you're paying this guy $1 million, or 10 billion. Okay. So it's going to be cost prohibitive, right? When we have hardware 5, we can't upgrade all the hardware 4 cars. When we have hardware 6, we can't upgrade all the hardware 5 cars. As the production rate increases, it's going to get more and more impossible to upgrade all the cars. Furthermore, even if we could upgrade everybody, then we wouldn't be able to get everyone to actually come into the service center and do it, right? So there's going to be multiple hardware generations out there. The goal of Tesla is to make every car as safe as possible. You don't know if that accident that's going to happen, someone was, about to run over a kid or something. That could happen in a hardware 5 or a hardware 4 or a hardware 3 car. Regardless of what car it happens in, you want the AI to be as good as possible and to try and prevent that crash with as high a chance of preventing it as possible. So this is going to be the reality, right? There's, it might be nice to say, okay, let's only worry about the latest hardware, but then people aren't going to be satisfied, um, you know, owning a car for multiple years. So it's just a reality that we have to live with. We have to support several generations of previous hardware. Right now, it's simple. We've only got hardware 3 and hardware 4. Within 5 years, we're going to have like hardware 7, hardware 6, hardware 5, hardware 4, and hardware 3 all out in the wild, and probably going to have to support them all.
Can you walk me through that math? 10 billion versus firing one person. Can you just kind of just repeat your logic and math there?
2 million cars times $5,000 per car equals $10 billion.
Okay, but you're assuming that Tesla has an obligation to upgrade those 2 million
No,
cars.
I'm not assuming they have an obligation. I'm just multiplying what it would cost per car by how many cars there are. So if they were to say we don't want to support hardware 3, we're just going to upgrade all of them, it's not realistic.
Well, they can just say we're not going to support and we're not going to upgrade.
I mean, yeah, they could. Customers would be upset. Really, what they'd probably do in that case is say, "Hey, we're going to make an upgrade." You could ask the customer to pay for it, but they already
they
paid
also,
for it.
Tesla doesn't also have to do the free FSD transfer either. Tesla is already going above and beyond for these people, and nothing is enough for them. As we saw many times in the past, nothing is enough for those who complain.
I mean, these are the customers. These are the people who are making FSD possible. FSD and those H100s are being paid for with these people's money. So, yeah, there are going to be people who complain, but they're the customers. We're doing this for them. We got to make them happy. So, the point I'm trying to make isn't about what has to do with the customers or what they deserve. I'm just saying their production rate keeps increasing. So, with every new generation of hardware, the cost of upgrading all the existing cars is going to get increasingly impossible. It's just not realistic. So what you have to do is you have to support several generations of hardware. And Pete Bannon isn't an idiot. He's designed hardware 4 and hardware 5 to make this as easy as possible. For example, hardware 4 has a hardware 3 backwards compatibility mode. All the current models are hardware 3 models running on hardware 4 in backwards compatibility mode. We haven't even started to use the power of hardware 4 yet. We haven't even started to use the higher resolution cameras or the extra processing power on those chips. So there's a big difference between the perception that people have when they're complaining on X compared to the actual technical reality of what's going on.
Omar, I thought
You have to stay on mute and raise your hand like everybody else and wait for him to call on you, Shasta. At the top of your screens is a link to my conversation with Omar. Members of the YouTube channel got an advanced look at that interview. They loved it. The comments and the feedback has been extremely positive. It is now accessible by everybody. So if you go to the link at the top, you can watch my 1-hour conversation with Omar diving into robotaxis and Optimus, Elon Musk, as well as towards the end of it, Omar shares his personal story, how he got involved with Tesla, how he's following the company, at what age, his professional background, educational background, my favorite section of the video. So that is at the top of our screens. Also, last night, we hosted our third episode of AI Amateurs, delved into how to leverage AI to increase daily productivity, learn coding, and other topics as well. This is going to be a weekly podcast. It's a different crowd of folks. We dive deep into technology. It's a different feel. So I recommend checking out the episode at the top of your screens. And if you prefer, you can also follow that podcast on Monday nights, 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central. Okay. Edward, go ahead.
Hey, gentlemen, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Not too bad today. I just got back home, and I was wondering, in this, let's just assume for a minute, hardware 3 doesn't work to the fact that regulators would like approve of it for whatever reason, or just in general, let's just say, for example, it won't work. Isn't there a way they can just Tesla could just say, hey, anybody with hardware 3 that wants to upgrade, we're going to give you a $5,000 or $10,000 credit to upgrade to a new car. I mean, if they did that, I would immediately get the new Model 3. Just to get hardware 4 or hardware 5, whatever one would for sure work. I mean, I think not everybody out of those 2 million cars obviously is just going to run out and go do it. But I think the people who are really committed to it would do it. I mean, I understand that there's financial implications, but I just think that might be a way they can get around it without.
I mean, that's what they're doing right now. They're offering this FSD transfer, which is an $8,000 value. You said 5 to 10. This FSD transfer, they don't have to do that. They're doing it because they want to do it right by the customers. That's the goal. Okay, $8,000 value, and that doesn't stop complainers from complaining. Nothing does. They just want to complain.
I mean, people are always going to complain. There's no world in which people don't complain. That's just a fact of life. But you just try and do the right thing. The people who are complaining are also buying the product. So clearly they're doing something right. I think if you want a car that can drive itself, this is pretty much your only option. So, hardware 3 cars are important. I have a hardware 3 car, and I think people's anxieties about this will ultimately be alleviated.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen this many times before. Like when Tesla got rid of the Bluetooth, sensors, the USS, ultrasonic sensors. My bad. People complained for months, and they spread all sorts of misinformation that reflected negatively on the Tesla brand. And eventually, vision-only system, parking assist, became much better than USS sensors, and they all started begging for their update. So the same is going to happen.
Then they
In the
started
meantime,
complaining that they didn't
Yeah.
get the new
Yeah,
features that only Vision got.
Yeah, I'm telling you, they just want to complain. But in the meantime, what's happening is negative for the brand, negative for the mission, negative for the sales, profits, everything. But they don't care. They just want to complain.
I don't know. I think it's kind of inside baseball. People who don't know about the brand probably have no idea what hardware 3 or hardware 4 even is. So, like, they're going to complain, obviously. I would complain. Doesn't really matter, let them complain. Ultimately, Tesla will deliver the software to them.
Uzi.
I don't want to frame it entirely negatively because you can perceive the complaining as FOMO, and they just want the product really badly, and they're upset that I think they have a tendency to take their frustration out on Tesla because there's a pattern of that behavior, which Juman's pointing out. But for the most part, this is because FSD 12.5 is killing it.
Yeah, like when I got 12.5, I, went for a ride with Zach, who I saw you talking to, and he was like, wow, this is awesome. I can't wait to get this on my car, but my car has hardware 3. So in a way, I'm encouraged by the complaining. What would scare me as a Tesla investor is if nobody was complaining because they said, I don't really use FSD anyway. I don't care. The fact that everyone's actually mad that they don't have the latest version, it just shows that this has become an important part of everybody's life and they want the best version. So I find it kind of encouraging in that way.
Edward.
Yeah, I have to agree with that. I understand what you're saying. I'm not trying to be negative about it. Put it this way, if I had the 12.3, which I have now, and I had it forever, and every car on the road had it forever, I'd be super happy, and it would save millions of lives. So I really don't care about, I don't have the personal next upgrade. I just think that it's a situation that they have to kind of work through is all. I don't mean anything negative about it.
Omar, do you think there's going to be a class action lawsuit?
Sure, why not? I mean, people sue Tesla all the time. There's tons of lawsuits. Usually they don't amount to anything. I mean, it's getting really hard to say that Tesla didn't keep their word.
Well, but the thing is, like, the person that you just mentioned, I know you're friends with him and everything, but he says Tesla promised that our cars would make money for us.
I mean, I wouldn't worry too much about it. He's a huge Tesla customer. He's a young kid. Okay. You you don't need to spend too much time arguing with kids online. Um, People say like a lot of stuff, I mean, Elon did, I don't think he promised, but he did say, yeah, we think you'll be able to make money with your car. A lot of people listen to him. And here's the thing, I think Hardware 3 is actually going to be a robotaxi. If it can really run this 5 times larger model, like what people are going to see is Hardware 3 cars driving for hours and hours without intervention. And people are going to be like, oh, wait a minute. Hardware 3 probably is actually going to get to better than human safety. I mean, I just uploaded this video. I'm about to post it probably after this space where I just do an hour of Uber driving in Los Angeles, and it just does the entire hour of Uber driving. I think one takeover I had, it pulled into a McDonald's parking lot without an outlet, and it can't reverse yet, so I had to help it reverse. But that's coming in an update soon. Other than that, no interventions. It did every pickup and drop off on its own. And Hardware 3 is going to be able to do that too. So, I get it, waiting sucks, but at the same time, it's amazing how uh, much they've actually been able to deliver for Hardware 3. If 12.5 is running the same way, which I think it should if the parameter count is the same, it's the same model. It's not a distilled model, which I think is really the exciting news for Hardware 3. Like, this is going to be running 12.5 at full capability. It's not some dumbed down version. It's the same version Hardware 4 is running. Then, what they're going to see is beyond anything we ever imagined. Like, you have to remember back in 2019, people were laughing at Elon. They were saying, you can't drive a car with just computer vision. How are you going to find the distance? You can't find a distance with cameras. And, here this thing is, it's able to drive for hours with just computer vision, far, far beyond what anybody thought was possible for a computer vision based system running on Hardware 3. So maybe, just maybe, there's even more performance to come. Maybe adding 100,000 GPUs is going to be worth something. I don't know. But, people it's a little bit difficult to imagine until you see it. When 12.5 does go out to Hardware 3, everyone who's complaining will be shut up. They're going to be shocked at what this thing is doing on Hardware 3. It's far beyond what anyone ever expected for this hardware. And of course, they're not going to support it forever. But rumors of Hardware 3's demise have been greatly exaggerated.
Okay, good. We have a bunch of hands. Let's go through. First, I want to give a word to Shasta. Shasta, you may unmute yourself and go ahead.
Thanks, Yaman. Yeah, Omar, I actually really agree with the last point you made, which is that FSD on Hardware 3 will end up getting to level 5. I think it's going to get there too. It might take a while, but they'll be able to distill the model down. And I agree with your earlier point that it's going to be a little bit of a cluster managing all the different versions of the software on Hardware 3, Hardware 4, Hardware 5, Hardware 6. But I think and I understand why Elon and the rest of the leadership team aren't doing what I'm going to say I think they'll do now, and why they're kind of holding it close to their chest. But I do think that if they aren't able to achieve full level 5 FSD on a given version of hardware, that at some point in the future, when they decide to finally deprecate that version of hardware and no longer support it, if they haven't achieved level 5, they'll probably just offer a free upgrade. That doesn't mean put money toward a new car. It just means they'll allow somebody to buy a car in the future at any point they want if they haven't achieved it on their hardware version, and transfer their FSD if they paid in full in previous. It's just the right business thing to do. It makes sense to keep your earlier adopters happy and to just have loyal customers, which is really what they have. And I think that's what's going to happen.
They're not that low. Omar?
Yeah, I think autonomy is coming at us extremely fast. Autonomy is scaling rapidly. I mean, have you seen these numbers for Waymo? They're now giving 100,000 rides a week. That's a run rate of 5.2 million driverless rides a year. Long term, the only requirement to make a car autonomous, because you look at Waymo's vehicles, they were Jaguar I-Paces. They don't even have good good lane keeping assist on that car. But they were able to retrofit that car and make it into a driverless car. So long term, the only thing that is really going to be necessary to make a car driverless is going to be a motor that allows you to turn the steering wheel and motors that allow you to move the pedals. That's the only requirement. A Tesla's designed to be super upgradable. The computer comes out, the cameras come out. There is not really a lot of requirement just beyond being able to turn the wheels and turn the pedal. And pretty much every car is going to be able to do that. I think that within 10 years, you'll be able to buy a dash-mounted unit similar to a Garmin GPS that can plug into a car and drive it entirely just from that, mounted unit.
All right. Let's go through the hands real quick. Hustletown, Edward, and Alexander.
Just wanted to tell all the Hardware 3 guys to take a page from Aaron Rodgers and just.
Can you guys hear Hustletown?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, I'll be back.
Just relax. Just absolutely 100% relax. You got to remember that these guys, they're doing something that's never been achieved before in this state. So it's going to take a little time, take a little recourse. What else did I wanted to say? I wanted to.
While you think, Edward?
No. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to get clarification from Omar. I was just wondering, because I've heard you say it's not quite to the level of human safety. In your opinion, since you've been driving the 12.5 more frequently than most in the US, do you think that it's really safer than a human now, or is it going to take a lot longer to get safer?
Well, in many ways, it is better than a human today. In other ways, it makes more mistakes than a human does. So it's not really something you can compare that directly. For example, it's looking in every direction. It can move over because it sees a motorcyclist coming before I even see them. It can often see and respond things faster than I can. But, it can't reverse, for example. It sometimes makes mistakes. I did have to take over at one point because it was driving and someone was entering the crosswalk and it didn't seem to recognize them. Whereas I think, humans do that too, but probably less frequently. So in many ways, it's safer and better. I think it makes more conservative driving choices than a human. In other ways, it's still making more mistakes than a human. And that's why it requires human supervision still.
Alexander.
Hello, guys. Yeah, it's interesting as a European to hear Americans complain about this, while we Europeans are basically the old lady from Titanic saying, it's been 84 years.
Yeah, that's funny. I can't believe you came up just to say that. That's pretty cool. All right. So I had Bradford on the board, but before that, real quick, I want to give a shout out to our sponsors. Okay. Both sponsors' links are at the top of our screens. TSLA Live is proudly sponsored by Joa, your go-to source for premium Tesla accessories, from innovative phone mounts to cutting-edge charging solutions. Joa offers everything you need to enhance your Tesla ownership experience. Don't miss out on our special offer for Space listeners. Use the coupon code TSLA Live at checkout for an exclusive discount. The link is at the top. Thank you, Joa, for supporting the Tesla community. And second sponsor, Pay More. If you have an old cell phone, MacBook, or iPhone, you can turn that into cold hard cash at Paymore. Paymore pays top dollar for your electronics. Whether it's the latest iPhone or an older model, Paymore wants it. Visit your nearest store with over 100 locations in the US and more coming globally. Cash is just around the corner. Don't wait. Thanks, Paymore, for supporting TSLA Live. All right, Bradford, go ahead.
Yeah, maybe with a couple $100 you get, you could buy a Tesla share with that. Pretty sweet. Yeah, I wanted to comment about safety. If you look at the Tesla FSD tracker, it's interesting.
Can you turn voice isolation on, Bradford? We're getting some wind noise.
Thank you. Thank you. There we go. New iPhone, I apologize.
Wow, way better.
Okay, cool.
Voice isolation mode, everybody. Know about it. Use it.
I'll have to listen back. So the older version that's available on Hardware 3 is actually doing better in miles to disengagement. Maybe the sample size has gotten smaller, but like it's sitting at like 700 miles per disengagement, whereas the folks who are using the newest version are seeing more critical disengagements. I thought that was interesting. Also, the topic about whether it's better than humans now, I think it's actually really close, Edward. I was driving my Cybertruck. It's kind of me driving it. After a movie and coming out of the movie. And
yeah, Bradford, your sound quality is really horrible. So we're going to move on for now. Thank you very much for coming up. All right, in other news, 45% of Shanghai Megapack factory has been completed. Omar, what do you think about the progress at Giga Shanghai for this Megapack factory?
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, they just started, like 3 months ago or something? So you've definitely got an example of China speed there. And it's super exciting for the Megapack. I mean, a lot more people are now starting to look at Tesla Energy as a material part of the business. A lot more analysts are talking about it. And I think it's going to become increasingly material. Now, this Shanghai mega factory, once it's completed, now I don't know about you, I'm no economist, but I bet the factory in China, the center of the world's battery supply chain, is going to have lower costs for battery production than California, one of the worst places in the world to create any kind of business. So that'll be lower cost and probably allow them to lower the price of the megapacks made at that factory, which means they'll get even more sales. And I would probably expect that by volume, it'll represent more than 50% of Tesla Energy's global output. So I think it's much more significant even than Lathrop. And I'm very excited to see Megapack start coming out of that facility.
Shasta.
Yeah, right on that point, Omar. I haven't seen too much about this in the quarterly disclosures or any of the earnings calls. Does anybody know if there is recurring revenue that will start stacking as we're seeing this huge ramp up in the energy space coming from AutoBidder? I haven't read too much about that, but I know that's a variable in the whole story.
There is some recurring revenue that comes in from Megapack installations. They do have a maintenance fee that they charge, so you have to pay a certain amount in maintenance. And Tesla will come out and take a look at the pack and everything. And then there's also AutoBidder and some of their software and management tools. So there is some recurring revenue. The revenue that they get is also recognized over time. So it's recognized in clumps related to the project milestones. So all of that does amount to, I would say most of the revenue is recognized through those project phases. But there is a little bit of recurring revenue that comes in consistently over time as well.
Mario.
So I think that the Tesla community has been amazing, right? It's just if you think about other brands and people that are as enthusiastic about the brand, the only correlation I could think of was Harley Davidson years ago. People would tattoo it on their body, right? They really felt like super strongly about it. I'm wondering, Yaman, if you don't mind sharing how you got the sponsors on the pod here on the space.
I mean, these are two, one of them is very long-term supporter on multiple platforms, and Joa is a supporter of Tesla community, and they reached out through Omar, and I thought that was a great match. So do you have a question about Tesla?
I did not.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I actually got my Joa wireless controllers in the mail yesterday, so I'll be taking them out and posting a review soon.
Okay, great. Yeah, we have a lot to cover today. I don't know why people are getting distracted with these comments. Omar, Waymo has a couple of big news. They have their 6th gen vehicle that Zeekr produced through Geely, their partnership with Geely. 13 cameras, 4 LiDARs, and 6 radars. Why is Waymo unable to reduce the hardware count here?
Well, they did reduce the sensor count slightly. I believe they eliminated a couple LiDARs, maybe a couple radars, but, small change to the sensor suite. I do worry about, the validation of this new sensor suite, if there's going to be kind of a shift there between the 5th generation and the 6th generation platform. But I haven't tried it yet, so there's no way to know. They're going to start testing these with human-driven drivers, but to be honest, it's hard to be anything but excited about Waymo scaling. The fact that we're now giving millions of driverless rides, and this new vehicle is super exciting. I think it's going to lower the cost for Waymo. Now, unfortunately, there is a 100% tariff on Chinese EVs, so that's going to significantly reduce the cost savings that were supposed to come from this. But it should be a lower cost vehicle than the Jaguar I-Pace is. The Jaguar is not going to be in production anymore. So in a way, they had no choice but to start using a different vehicle. But what's really exciting about the Zeekr vehicles, they've actually got one in the Peterson Automotive Museum in Los Angeles right now, if anyone wants to go check it out. It's not going to have any steering wheel or pedals. It's just going to be sort of a pure robotaxi. So I think it's really exciting from that perspective.
But did they say when it's going to come to the roads?
They haven't given any definitive timeline. There are a few on the roads testing right now with human drivers, but I imagine that there'd be significant validation needed before they actually launch it to the public.
Yeah. Yeah, it's gonna be it's curious to see. And they also said they have 700 cars on the roads today, right?
Right.
100,000 trips per week and 700 cars. They're growing really fast.
They are growing pretty fast. In May of 2023, they were giving about 10,000 rides a week. Now they're giving 100,000 rides a week. So in a little over a year, they're 10 times bigger. Now, obviously, it's a drop in the bucket of the global rideshare market, but these are driverless rides we're talking about. So, self-driving isn't science fiction anymore. Millions of people are taking driverless rides safely every year. And, they're now starting to test driving on highways without a driver for their Google employees. That may open up to customers. They're expanding the service area a little bit. It's really exciting to see driverless cars finally become a reality. Something that anyone can go to Phoenix or San Francisco and use.
Yeah, I think in the US, I'm guessing the number of ride-sharing rides per week is probably in the hundreds of millions of range, right? Hundreds of millions of trips per
Mhm.
range. Yeah. So if they
Yeah.
if they 10x one more time to 1 million per week, they're coming up to 1% almost. Yeah. Wow.
I don't know. I might want to double check those numbers.
Okay. About Tesla? Fix it. Go ahead.
Can you hear me? Sorry.
Yeah, about Tesla, I can't hear you.
Okay. Breaking news. There is a big wave, relatively big wave of new installations going out, V12.5.1.3. I cannot tell yet whether it's hardware 4 only, so we need to wait for the installations to complete, but we should know soon.
Okay, great. Keep us posted. Thank you very much. Fix it. Go ahead.
Yeah, if I break up, let me know. I'll chime back in. I'm on the road right now using the little Starlink Mini. So I wanted to get your thoughts on my critical disengagement that I had. It was an edge case, but I just don't see how LiDAR can have fixed it or Tesla Vision can fix it. This is what happened. 1,550 miles on FSD 1243 with no critical disengagements. I was driving yesterday. There was a semi in front of me on the highway. They were doing construction. They were veering all the traffic into the other bound lane. And as soon as the semi moved out of the way, the construction was visible to the Tesla Vision. But I saw it a while back. So the question is, Tesla Vision cameras aren't good enough to see what I saw a while back. And I don't think that could be even fixed by LiDAR. So how can a situation like that be fixed? Because what happened is it slammed on its brakes and almost ran into the cone, but it slammed on its brakes last minute when the semi got out of the way. So in a situation like that, what is the situation? What is a possibility to get that fixed?
Omar?
Yeah, I think having greater memory about what it can see before. And also, they've started communicating between the cars a lot more. So right now, you may see something before the car does and say, okay, I was actually able to find out about that first. Probably before the end of the year, we're going to see that the car is knowing about incidents like this well before they're even visible and is adjusting its route planning accordingly. And when it gets there and that semi moves out of the way and it sees the cone, it's not going to be a surprise because it'll have already seen it before.
Yeah, because I was on a similar construction the day before where they were doing that kind of highway stuff, but there was no cars in front of me and it maneuvered perfectly around this construction that was set up. But that one semi, as soon as it left the vision, it finally saw that construction cone and it just slammed on its brakes last second. So that was just curiosity. I'm like, I don't, because people are like, oh, LiDAR. I just don't see how LiDAR can even fix that and penetrate into a semi. You know what I mean?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Shasta?
Yeah, I just wanted to pose a thought. So with the new Zeekr Waymo vehicles that they're going to be introducing, and future iterations of their hardware platform, and if they're able to scale, bring down costs, and scale from hundreds of cars to thousands to hundreds of thousands of cars, potentially before FSD is capable of driving level 5 and operating on the new Robotaxi platform and being a comparable solution. Do you think that will take market share away and erode at Tesla's competitive advantage cost-wise, or do you think that it will kind of pave the way and grease the wheels so that people are more used to getting into a driverless vehicle, so when Tesla does enter the space with their solution, it's an easier ramp for them? Just curious which one of those options
Omar?
is more likely.
I mean, so winning in the market is going to be about producing millions of cars that have the lowest cost per mile and scaling globally. And I think Tesla's the best positioned company to do that. Waymo is doing a lot of good stuff for Tesla and for the industry by pioneering driverless vehicles and by doing it in a safe and responsible way. So, yes, this is affecting people's perceptions. They're paving the regulatory path. If they have a way to do it, other companies have a way to do it as well. So I see this as very positive for the industry. Very, very positive.
Edward.
Yeah, I was just wondering if you think Cruise is completely dead in the water, or are they working to get back
Yes,
into the robot?
dead.
They're dead.
Deader than dead. Lawyers have taken over the company. They're going nowhere.
What about the Amazon's horse in the race? What's their name again?
Zoox.
Yeah.
Zoox is continuing to iterate on their product, but they don't have any public robotaxi service today. So
Yeah.
they're probably going to run out of money too,
Yeah.
but who knows?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, interesting stuff, man. I mean, Waymo is definitely blowing expectations out of the water. They took a couple of decades to get here, but they're moving now.
15 years from the project being founded to giving 100,000 rides a week today. 15 years. That is a lot of dedication. They started this before AlexNet was even a thing. So, I mean, hats off to them. They're running the biggest driverless service in the world. And by the way, these services in China, they're trying to pretend they have driverless too. They suck, okay? They've got drivers in them. You order your driverless car, some Chinese guy's in the driver's seat. Okay, that doesn't count because they're taking over. Then you go, can you take me here? No, I can only take you to one of the robotaxi stations. There's certain robotaxi stations that are just driving the same route over and over. And people act like, there's a lot of exaggeration. I think they want to make it seem like it's more advanced than it is. But from what I've heard from people, it's far less advanced than what we're seeing from Waymo. Waymo appears to be unmatched in their ability to offer driverless rides within their service area that have no problem. And I use it in San Francisco and LA. You can pretty much call it and it'll get you to where you're going every time, no issue.
Yeah. But you're not concerned as a Tesla investor. I mean, they are a
No,
competitor at this point, right?
not really. I mean, Tesla sells cars, Waymo sells driverless rides. So I can't replace my Tesla with a Waymo today because it doesn't go everywhere I need it to go. In a way, if you like Waymo, you're probably going to like Tesla too, because then you would want a car that has that technology as well. In the future, they're both going to be offering rideshare services, and at that point, they'll be competitors, no doubt. But today, they're more complementary than competitors.
Does Google or Waymo have a humanoid project? Can Google leverage data Waymo is collecting, the AI expertise that Waymo is building to build a humanoid and compete with Optimus?
I mean, Google is huge in AI and robotics through DeepMind, and they may be doing some little robotics experiments here and there. I don't think they have anything that's like a humanoid like Optimus. Google actually used to own Boston Dynamics back in the day. They owned it for many years. And Boston Dynamics obviously makes humanoids, but they ended up selling it to Hyundai. So I think that kind of reflected Google kind of saying we don't think humanoids is going to be a thing near term. What they're working on internally, I don't know, but Google's not typically a product company like that. Google is really a web apps type company. So we haven't heard of any effort to make a competitor to Optimus.
Uzi, I'm going to get back to you in a second from Shasta. After we talk to Shasta, Uzi has a couple of news that he wants to share with us. Shasta?
Yeah, just wanted to ask more of an esoteric question that applies to Optimus and FSD, kind of with the political social landscape we've been going into over the last decade or so, where government is often putting pressure on private companies to do their bidding and censor and control individuals and kind of constrict people's rights and liberties. do you think that the leadership team at Tesla, I mean, I think that they do, but do you think the leadership team at Tesla has a plan in place to decentralize the control of these AI assets such that governments can't use them as another control mechanism as they did with the social media companies throughout COVID? Sorry, kind of off the wall question, but thought I'd throw it out
Omar, do you have any thoughts?
This is almost entirely bullshit. Okay. The government is not going to control you. They're not going to turn off your car. We invented something called end-to-end encryption. This allows us to have pretty secure systems. I mean, as someone who's, take a look at the Tesla API. When you communicate with your Tesla in the Tesla app, even Tesla can't see what you're doing. Did you know that? It's end-to-end encrypted between you and the phone. If the government says, "Hey, what's this guy doing?" Tesla's going to say, "I don't know. It's encrypted." So, and then you hear people talking about this as a reason not to buy EVs. Biden's going to turn off my EV. It's just nonsense. Okay.
Yeah.
It's not
Okay.
really something we have to worry about.
Moving on. Uzi.
Yeah, so I was looking at Tesla Chan. He focuses on Shanghai a lot. Two important data points he provided was August through, I guess, July 29th till August 18th. About 41,000 cars have been insured, which is a decent amount. I mean, Omar can provide more color on what he thinks about that. But more, this is interesting too, is tomorrow to the 25th, Tesla China is going to have the World Robot Conference, and Optimus, FSD, and Cybertruck will be featured there. So it seems like there's real hype. And
Yeah, I mean, those are the three pillars of Tesla's intrinsic value right now. Okay, FSD, Robotaxis, Optimus, and Cybertruck. So FSD/Robotaxis, Optimus, and Cybertruck. And those exact topics as they relate to the next 3 to 5 years. The link to that video is at the top of your screens. I highly recommend watching the video. Towards the end of it, my favorite section is when Omar talks about his personal story, his background, professional, personal, etc. So I think I see in the data too, Omar, people are really interested in that part and the questions I got from my followers about what I should ask you. So all that detail is at the top of your screen. So Uzi just said, Tesla China is going to talk about FSD, Optimus, and Cybertruck at a festival in China. Okay, so that's August 21 to 25. August 21 to 25. So look for headlines. We're gonna get some news on that front, I'm sure. All right. We have to touch on Tesla tariff rate going down from 21% to 9% for cars imported from China to Europe. Omar, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's great. Less tariffs, lower price TVs.
Yeah. Alexander, are you guys celebrating over there?
Yeah, of course, but I'm not sure.
Are you throwing a tariff party?
Yeah, sure, I can throw a party, no problem. But I don't think I'm not sure if there really was like 20%, because Tesla only increased the prices of Model 3 like 10% when the tariffs hit like 2 months ago. So that seems strange to me.
Yeah, maybe they knew about this change, right?
Yeah, but the change, like the tariffs hit like a couple of months ago. I'm pretty sure about that. So I think there only was like 9% from the beginning.
I mean, this news is all over the place. Omar?
Oh, this is kind of off topic, but I just remembered some Tesla employee DM'd me last night when I said 12.5.1.3 is rolling out, and he said the next version's even better. So there may be another version testing internally with Tesla's employees right now.
Is that 12.6?
I would think maybe 12.5.2 or something like that. Elon did mention that the hardware 3 build is not going to be the same build number. So maybe we'd need a 12.5.2 or something for that to happen.
Okay. Interesting. Did your contacts say anything what might be different with 12.5.2 speculatively?
No, they can't say much about anything, but we do know that there's a huge number of updates we're awaiting. Hardware 3 support, obviously, we've talked about. Cybertruck FSD is a big one. The merge of the highway stack for end to end is also going to be huge. And we have summon and banish and reverse also coming. So a huge amount of functionality changes to FSD in the pipeline. And I don't know if one or any of those things will be in the next update, but I hope so. I'm particularly excited for FSD to go driverless in parking lots. That's going to be really cool to see FSD standing from outside the car for the first time.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's a lot of major milestones. FSD on Cybertruck, Smart Summon, FSD on Hardware 3. Hopefully all of these will happen throughout the rest of this year. And we can move on to the next item that people want to complain about. Alexander?
Yeah, I want to ask a question here because I got an update for my Model 3 2024.26.3.1, and I actually got an update for autopilot. So, like it was before, when it came to stoplights, it stopped even if the light was green or not. But now it says it will continue if it has a leader car in front of it and will not stop, and I don't have to like press the accelerator pedal to continue. Is that a thing in the US as well?
Ah, yes. I remember how exciting that was when I got it in 2018.
Lol.
Yes, I remember how exciting that was when I got it in 2018.
Lol.
All right. Omar, did you watch the DNC?
Yeah, I did.
Really? How do you find time to do all this at the same time? I mean, you were on the AI amateur space last night too.
I get paid to do nothing. I've got the best job in the world. I just sit around, I tweet, and I watch TV. So I have time to watch whatever I want. The DNC was a lot of shouting. I'm not sure what they were so riled up about, but they were shouting quite a bit. Any sense, but he's not the president, presidential candidate. So yeah, it was interesting. Nothing too noteworthy there. Biden was the main event, and it's a lot of shouting, but yeah, we'll have to see. They're all making the case for Kamala, saying you need Kamala, and we'll see what the American public decides in November.
Our favorite oil guy, Tom, made a prediction in passing the other day. As I was listening to the recording, I noticed he said something like, Democratic Party will push Joe Biden aside, and Joe Biden will resign, and then Kamala will be our first female president a few weeks before the election to kind of get those positive news going before the election. What do you think about that prediction?
Yeah, I don't think so. I think Biden will serve out the remainder of his term. I'm not sure. I think they've got good momentum going for them right now. I think a move like that would be kind of controversial. It would kind of maybe make them look not so good in terms of, having a president who can't serve. Um, we're only a few months away from the election. I think Biden can survive until January, hopefully. But it is interesting when you hear a lot of these proposals. Biden goes up there and he goes, if you elect Kamala, she's going to bring housing prices down. She's going to bring food prices down. I'm just sitting there thinking, dude, you're the president. If these are good ideas, why are we not doing them right now? Like, go introduce some legislation in Congress. If it doesn't pass, then at least we get a sense of where it's kind of at and maybe how many seats we need to flip. But I think they're kind of proposing these proposals that they know they can't really get through, at least not in the way they're promising them. And, they're kind of saying, if I'm elected, I'm going to do this. Why do we need to elect you? You guys are already in office. So it's a little bit strange there, but, I think a lot of people are more excited about Kamala than Biden, right? I mean, Biden was just such a terrible candidate that they're like, oh my God, she can actually speak full sentences. This is great. But then you kind of listen to some of her proposals and you're like, huh? These are horrible proposals, you know? So I don't know. We'll have to see. I'm not really a fan of either of the major candidates too much. But it's looking pretty neck and neck right now. It's tough to predict who's going to come out on top.
Yeah, it's really interesting how the polls change so much. I mean, when Trump assassination attempt happened, he surged in the polls. Surged, and also just anecdotally, people left and right supporting him, coming out there vocally. And we talked about in here how there's still so much time, and even a few days before the election, things can change, as we saw in 2016. So it's going to be very interesting the next couple of months here. Uzi?
For the polls, I wanted to also mention Polymarket as this alternative to polling. I don't really know how confident we should be in it, but I really wanted to state that there's this weird flipping in tone where when I was growing up, the Democrats were more of the party of love and optimism, and the Republicans had more moral outrage. And I think that's flipped, where there's more the Republicans now is a love fest.
Yeah,
I don't know about that. I mean, both are pretty outraged.
Yeah.
Democrats are outraged that, it's not easier to get an abortion, and Republicans are outraged about transgender people. Oh my God, transgender people. Republicans, those MAGA Republicans, they're both pretty outraged. I'm here not outraged about anything, which is why I feel kind of on the outside.
Uzi?
I just didn't hear them mention the transgender issue at the Republican convention. It was more diverse and inclusive.
Yeah. They didn't.
Okay.
Yeah.
Trump recently came out and reiterated, I think, I keep seeing headlines and posts about it, that he would ditch the EV credits. Is that correct? Did you guys see the exact words?
Yeah, I think he said he'd consider ending the EV tax credit, which I feel like isn't really news. I mean, weren't we just discussing this the other week? But
yeah, I think people were kind of getting hopeful that because of the kind of rekindled relationship, he might hold on to it. I'm not sure.
I don't think so. I mean, I don't think he's been pretty consistent about how he feels about it, and frankly, I don't think that he's wrong in many ways. A lot of people go, "Oh my God, 7,500." They don't realize that 7,500 is like a deal with the devil. It's like a poison pill. They're giving it to hybrids. They're giving it to legacy automakers. They're flooding the market with crappy EVs. People are buying them and then going back to gas. And, we're not able to make EVs as cheap as they could because of this credit. It's actually making EVs more expensive. Then you need the government to subsidize it to make it affordable. So, although a lot of EV proponents are in favor of it, I'm not going to shed a tear if it gets repealed. I think if we can't fix it means get rid of the price caps, get rid of the income caps, get rid of all these battery sourcing requirements, simplify it. If we can't fix it, which frankly, I don't think it's politically tenable to make those changes, then we'd be better off getting rid of it. This is so harmful. in so many ways that people don't really see.
Okay. Finflexity is coming up. Finflexity? Finflexity, you may unmute yourself and go ahead. Okay.
Yeah, I actually saw the Trump commentary, and he basically, before he was like, I will cut the credit as soon as I get in office. This time he was, I will consider cutting the credit, and at the same time he said that he will make Elon a cabinet position or an advisor role. I think, yeah.
We have a question in the comments that says Trump wants to floated the idea of giving Elon a cabinet position. If Elon accepts, he would need to likely step down as Tesla CEO. Is this a risk to Tesla? Omar?
I have a hard time imagining him accepting a cabinet position and stepping down as the CEO of Tesla and SpaceX.
Yeah.
I think an advisory role might be appropriate, but I mean, what a waste of time for him to just be in government where no one does anything. He'll literally lose his mind working in the federal government.
Wasn't Elon in a advisory role back in 2016 too, and then he kind of stepped? Yeah. So this is nothing new either. Okay.
Exactly.
News on Cybertruck. One of the recent delivery holders, he reported, I believe, that he achieved something like efficiency that would translate to 370 miles of range on one charge. And this is said to be due to new wheels. Did you guys see that?
Yeah. The new smaller wheels, they get better range. And also they've made some efficiency improvements. I think they've started experimenting with some new motors. So yeah, they're continuing to iterate on the product, make it even better.
So the new motors would be for deliveries that are, that's not obviously not an over-the-air update. That going to the truck.
I don't know. Kyle Connor from Out of Spec did get a message from Tesla Service. They said, we're actually going to replace your motor with the newer one. So I think that they're doing some tests around that. But I'm not really sure what the internal details are there. Generally, Tesla's always iterating on every part of the product. And they're not like other companies where they wait until the next model year to start putting the change in. If they have a change that works and it's validated, it goes into production the next day.
Okay, great. So new wheels, new motors, software updates, and Cybertruck's range is improving over time. 370 miles is quite a lot, actually.
The range is really good for my use cases, which are, I'm not doing any heavy hauling or towing, but I mean, I take road trips in this thing all the time, and it's great for road trips. It's a similar charging experience to any other Tesla. So with the range extender, it's going to have the best range of any electric truck, hands down.
Alexander.
That is 491 kilometers for anyone wondering.
Thank you. All right. I covered that. And then a lot of short sellers replied to me yesterday, and one of them came up to talk about it, but I couldn't really change topics at the moment. But was there a recent fire with a Tesla Semi? I don't know the details on that story. Can anyone please tell us about it?
Yeah, I mean, a Tesla Semi, Tesla runs Tesla Semi trucks from Nevada to Fremont, bringing the battery packs for the Model 3 and Y, which are made in Nevada, to Fremont. And they're sort of eating their own dog food. They're using Tesla Semis. So Tesla Semis are frequently traveling down this route. Yesterday, early in the morning at 3 a.m. on Monday, so kind of Sunday night, a Tesla Semi truck crashed. It flew off the highway and flew into like the trees or something. Unclear why it crashed. Whether it was, a driver error or maybe problem with the vehicle or something. But after the crash, there was a fire, and both both directions of I-80 in Nevada were closed for several hours while they worked to extinguish this fire because there were concerns about sort of, toxic chemicals from the battery. So, you know, crashes happen, unfortunately. I don't know if it was due to an issue with the vehicle or due to an issue with the driver. I'm sure the details of that will come out, but eh, you know, there's tons of semi crashes around the country every day, unfortunately. Only reason we're hearing about this one is because it was a Tesla.
Correct. Okay, I want to give a quick shout out to our sponsors. At the top of our screens, you can see our second sponsor buying the product of our first sponsor. So this is cross-sponsored pollination going on here. And they're using, and Thomas used our code to get a 5% off. Thank you, Thomas. Thomas represents Pay More and a longtime supporter on Patreon and elsewhere. If you use the code TSLA Live to buy those wireless controllers, you get 5% off, and we get 5%. TSLA Live gets 5%, and that goes towards improving this space. Thank you very much, everybody. Edward.
Yeah, you were talking about the fires for that vehicle for the semi, but did you guys see the first fire? I guess on the Cybertruck, somebody ran into a ditch and hit like some wall, and it went up. And I didn't see much about it, and I'm surprised the new media wasn't blasting it negatively. But I was wondering if anybody knew anything about what happened there.
I don't know.
I mean, when you get, thousands of vehicles on the road, some people are going to crash them. Most people don't. And most crashes don't involve any fire. But it's tough to know. Every crash is unique, what really happened. But, every crash is investigated. If there's an issue with the vehicle or with autopilot or anything like that, we find out. But usually it's just drunk drivers, distracted drivers, your same reasons people crash in any other car.
All right. We're past the half point for Q3. Any updates to production deliveries estimates? Tesla's subvented loan rate is supposed to end at the end of this month. So you have to order it by the end of August and take delivery by September. We don't have any word on whether that's going to happen again in September, but I'm guessing because of the inventories rising around the world, across the industry, I suspect these deals will continue forward and boost deliveries in September as well. Tesla is doing well in China, but not necessarily in Europe, as far as I can tell. Omar, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, more strong China numbers last night, which is encouraging to see. It's looking like a good quarter. I think we have a year-over-year beat in the bag due to an easy comp from last year. And we could come within spitting distance of an all-time delivery record. So the core auto business seems to be improving. It's still seen better days, but things are getting better. And with rates coming down in the US, it's looking like there's going to be more wind in the sails of that business. So it's encouraging to see.
Okay, great. Any questions, comments? Please request to speak. So earlier we talked about the Shanghai Megapack factory. We talked about Tesla Semi. We just talked about Q3 production deliveries. We talked about Cybertruck's range increase. We talked politics about Trump potentially removing the credit. We talked DNC. In other news, the government is revising down job additions data by 1 million. That is pretty incredible, but not totally unexpected, because there has been a huge discrepancy between the households data and the establishment data for jobs. All right, Uzi.
Very big news. Over the weekend, Kanye West was spotted in a Cybertruck. So now you have both Kim and Kanye.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, I think the jobs news is probably bigger than that. Obviously, as the Fed looks at these economic indicators, and all economic indicators are BS to some extent. When you really start digging into how they're calculated, you're like, okay. But in large part, the Fed is making decisions based on these indicators. And I think really the narrative that we've heard most of this year about the labor market being tight and that justifying some of the monetary policy decisions we've seen, it looks like the labor market isn't quite as tight as we thought, which isn't really too surprising. But I mean, the scale of this downward revision uh, virtually eliminates any job growth that we've seen. So this is making a pretty strong case that the time for the Fed to act and start bringing down rates by at least 25 basis points is the September meeting. And I think there's a growing case that a 50 basis point cut may be appropriate for the September meeting.
Yeah, the markets are expecting 25 basis point right now, about 80% probability of that, and then 20% probability of a 50 basis point cut. It's going to be interesting to see. We're a few weeks away, but this Friday, Powell is going to speak at Jackson Hole, and that's going to shape probabilities quite a bit. Ready, player one?
Yeah, thanks, Yaman. A question I have to Omar is something I heard Kamala says a mixture of politics related to Tesla. It was an excerpt, and it was saying that the intention is to start targeting IP for corporations that do not cooperate. And I'm curious what implications that would have. And I don't have the full context for when that was said, just because of the internet. But I'm curious what implications that could have on FSD, just FSD itself, or Tesla and other parts, or maybe this is just a moot point. Thanks.
So I think the comments that you're referring to, she was making in relation to trying to bring down prescription drug prices. So, prescription drug prices is an interesting thing because you obviously don't want to overcharge sick people who need medicine, but you also need the companies to be able to make money in research and invest in many treatments, many of which won't work out, to find maybe that one life-saving treatment that's really going to improve people's lives. I don't see this really impacting Tesla. Tesla has open licensing of all their patents. They don't enforce on patent infringement unless they're litigated against as a policy. And I don't think Kamala or anyone else is really proposing seriously eliminating patent protections. So those comments are really in relation to trying to bring down prescription drug prices.
Thank you.
All right. And then in other news, UAW is threatening a strike against Stellantis. UAW union threatening a strike against Stellantis. Stellantis apparently made some, promises in their deal, and UAW feels that they are delaying these promises and they don't intend to deliver on them. And so they're getting ready. Even I think it's been less than a year since they agreed to something. Getting ready to strike their plans, even though Stellantis has some of their products have years of inventory, which is incredible. All right.
Yeah. Maybe Sean Fain doesn't understand that Stellantis is in big trouble. Okay. If he strikes against Stellantis for not reopening this Belvedere, Illinois plant, there may not be a Stellantis for him to strike in the future. So, I don't know if they'll actually strike or not, but I don't think Stellantis can afford to reopen this plant. Their inventory is already through the roof. The last thing they need is another plant open, let alone a money-losing EV plant.
I mean, maybe he does realize that, and he says, that's not my problem. That is the shareholders' problem. And I want what I want. I want what I was promised.
Yeah,
and in his case, by the way, there was a promise, like a contractual argument, unlike the complainers about Hardware 3. All right. Let's talk market share. Tesla's market share in the US dropped below 50% for the first time in Q2. This is making some headlines. Hyundai is second, Ford is third, GM is fourth. We know Ford and GM is canceling plans, rolling back EV plans. Omar, do you think Tesla's EV market share is going to rise back about 50% in the coming years and continue that high through the next few years?
I think it probably will go up above 50% again. Long term, you'd probably expect it to be maybe closer to 10 to 20%, maybe more if they do really well. But right now, what you're seeing in the US auto market is a lot of getting rid of EV inventory. So if you look at the level of incentives means discounts. You look at the level of incentives on legacy auto EVs, they've gone through the roof from, 1,000 last year to, in now some cases, $18,000 off the car. They're giving them away. Okay. They were already losing money at these cars, selling them at full price. Now they're incentivizing them fully. So if you look at the sales numbers, you might say, oh, wow, they sold a lot of these legacy auto EVs. And Tesla's only, 48% of the market, not 50. Oh my God, they're not selling, more cars than everyone else combined for the first time in a while. But are they going to actually be able to sustain that level of sales without these incentives as they ramp down production? Probably not. So, in some sense, you're seeing Tesla down a little bit because of the ramp of the new Model 3 and the fact that the Model Y, which makes up more than 50% of their volume, doesn't have the new version until next year. So I think Tesla's going to go up a little bit. And some of these other brands are going to go down a little bit because they're eventually going to run out of cars to incentivize and sort of discount. So I think you'll probably see Tesla go above 50% again. But long term, if we're in a healthy EV market, and if people are all transitioning to EVs and driving EVs instead of gas cars, then you would expect that their share of the EV market would fall, but their share of the auto market would rise. So I'm particularly concerned about their share of the auto market. More people making EVs is generally a good thing. But you are seeing a little bit of a imbalance right now as legacy automakers get rid of and liquidate all their EVs that aren't selling, while Tesla's also going through a product transition.
All right, great. We've been here for an hour and a half today. Covered everything we need to cover. We don't need to go any further than that. I recommend people watch the 2 episodes at the top. One with Omar, dig into robotaxis, Optimus, and how the future will pan out. And then 2, AI Amateurs, episode 3. That was a very informative conversation as well. Different topic. And I want to build a capability around artificial intelligence, understanding how artificial intelligence works, how robotics work. So that podcast is fledgling, but it's going to grow pretty fast, I think, with a different crowd. So I recommend checking those out as well. The link to those are at the top of your screens. All right, let's call it a day. Thank you very much, everybody. And I will chat with you next time. Take care.